Hi, everybody. We're going to wait for the notifications to go out and for people to start coming in. So when you get on, give me a big hello. And if you're new here, let us know where you're from. We always like to have new victims here in the crypt. Absolutely. So we're just going to wait for folks to start filing in. It looks like there's a little bit of a delay. Hey, Mikey, how are you? Let's see. I'm trying to set up my other phone here so I can see the comments. It's a little bit easier to see it that way. So I hope you guys have had a great week. I'll be honest with you. We have had a good week. Hi, Mikey. But I am exhausted. Oh, my goodness. Hi, Tammy. How are you? Good to have you here. This is going to be a fun one tonight. Some people may be familiar with this story. Some may not. Hey, Tom. But we'll get started as soon as we get a couple more people in here. So Tom says, I am an old victim now. Yes. Well, you may be tough and a little rough around the edges, Tom, but we love to have you here. I love all my little tasty morsels. Absolutely. So, but yeah, I am so tired. Oh my goodness. I have been so busy this week, but it's been a very, very good week. So that's not a bad kind of tired. So, so yeah, we're just going to hang out here. And oh, did you guys get a chance to catch Psychic Cindy last night? She was on our sister page, Psycho Bunny Death Cult, which we are also broadcasting to tonight. That woman is a powerhouse. Awesome energy, awesome energy. But I think she went on for like 3 hours. So bless her heart. Kudos to her. I definitely that I've been able, it's very hard to me to get to a lot of shows throughout the week, but it fell at the perfect time, and I was able to sit, like watch for a very, very long time, and it was very, very fun. And she's just a wonderful person. So if you guys have not caught Psychic Cindy yet, she is things to do with like movies or episodes, or either on TV or things like that. It's actually been the subject of quite a few of those. So you may have heard about it and you never realized that you'd really heard about it. All right. So Maud says, I had someone tell me about them doing jerk turkey as their tradition. Ooh, that sounds delicious. That sounds like down here. And I don't know if it's just a Southern thing. We do deep fried turkeys sometimes in a big fryer. And they're really, really good. Very, very moist. Very good. But to get back on track with this particular story, so you may have heard about it and didn't realize that you'd heard about it. But tonight, what we're going to be talking about is the damnable life and death of Stub Peter or Petter. And this is basically, he was the werewolf. He was dubbed the werewolf of Bedburg, Germany. So it really is, it's unclear exactly where and when the werewolf legend originated. Hi, John, how are you? Some scholars believe the werewolf made its debut in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the oldest known Western prose that we basically know about. When Gilgamesh, and basically the story goes into the fact that Gilgamesh jilted a potential lover because she had turned her previous mate into a wolf. And in the very beginning, way before, because it will be later that we actually see the transformation of the werewolf into the bloodthirsty fiend that we all know about today. But before that, they were seen as more of a benevolent type of creature, per se. And it usually did boil down to the fact that for one reason or another, they were cursed, and normally by their wives, and only took retribution against the people that cursed them. Again, normally only their wives. So that dirty dog. So that's kind of the origin of the werewolf. It does move a little bit further in history. And like I said, it wouldn't be until later. So Frank says he wants to help to barbecue the hog. I don't know if we're barbecuing it or if we're putting it in the ground. If you've never had one like in the pit and covered and slowly cooked, oh, it's very, very good. So I'm not sure what we're doing, but I'm sure it will be delicious. And you guys just need to come on. There should be a plenty, but it would be later that we would, associate what we think of now as the werewolf mythos to the more, enraged, out of control animal that is somehow transformed in a full moon. Because the full moon really didn't have a play in a lot of the traditional folklore back when you look back at like the Greek history and things like that until later. So the story of Stoop Peter, and I'm going to refer to him by a couple of different last names because they're pronounced differently. His last name is pronounced differently, but it basically boils down to Stubb. Peter Stubb, or Stoop, or Stoof, he had, due to a birth defect, he was missing one of his hands. So the story of Stoop Peter would have most likely been lost to the annals of time if it had not been for an occultist by the name of Montague Summers, who rediscovered the most comprehensive source on the case in a pamphlet of 16 pages published in London in 1590 by a gentleman by the name of George Bors. And then it goes on to say it was London chapbook of 1590. So a lot of times when they say pamphlet or chapbook, those were kind of a condensed mix between like a newspaper and almost like a penny dreadful, so to speak, the way that they would put those out, which was then translated. Well, they think that which was a translation of the original German print, of which no copies have survived. The pamphlet itself is titled The Damnable Life and Death of Stoop Peter, or Peter, which I will make reference to as we go along with this story. Now, the English pamphlet, of which 2 copies exist, one in the British Museum and one in the Lambeth Library, describes Stoop's life, alleged crimes, and the trial, and includes many statements from neighbors and witnesses of the crimes. And I'm going to go ahead, I'll warn you here in a minute too, but I do have to add to this story tonight kind of a warning for adult or extreme content. So if if there is mention of extreme cruelty of the crimes, as well as highly disturbing, if not highly disturbing content. So if you are squeamish, faint of heart, or have young children watching, you may want to rethink that, because this one's pretty gross. Okay. So Summers reprinted the entire pamphlet, including a woodcut, and on pages 253 to 259 of his work, which was entitled The Werewolf in 1920. Additional information is provided by the diaries of Herman von Weinsberg, a Cologne alderman, and by a number of illustrated broadsheets, which were printed in southern Germany and were probably based, again, on the German version of the London pamphlet. The original documents were thought to have been lost sometime during what is referred to as the 30 Years' War that followed in Central Europe between the years of 1618 and 1648. Contemporary references were also made to the pamphlet by a gentleman by the name of Edward Fairfax in his first-hand account of the alleged witch persecutions of his own daughters in 1621. So again, warning, due to the extreme cruelty of the crimes, in this case, detailed below what I will get into, are highly disturbing and not for the squeamish faint of heart or for young children. So let's see what's going on in the comments real quick, and then we'll get into the meat of the story. All right. So Frank says, those damn Germans getting rid of literature. Yeah, and I don't know if it was just, you know, kind of like we think back to things that we had when we were younger, and you're like, gosh, I wish I would have hung on to that or something like that. I don't know if it's just they just kind of got lost over time because they were basically like newspapers. So I imagine over time they just, you know, got thrown away or what have you. But they believe that that's kind of when, because there was a lot of uproar and war and things like that going on in those areas during the 30-year war. So I can see how it would be very easy to probably misplace stuff or for it to be destroyed if there's wars going on. So Angie says, hi, Odd Mother, or Mother Delamore. Hello, Angie. So glad you're here. Let's see. Hi, Zool. How are you? Okay. All right. So in the late 16th century, the town of Bedburg, Germany, was terrorized by a diabolical creature that slaughtered its cattle and snatched away its women and children, killing them with unspeakable morbidity. The shocked and horrified townspeople, yes, right there. The shocked and horrified townspeople feared that they were being victimized by a raving demon from hell, or just as bad, a bloodthirsty werewolf who lived among them. This is the true story of Peter Stubb, the werewolf of Bedburg, whose crimes plunged a German town already beset by political and religious turmoil into an unimaginable nightmare, and whose heinous murders rivaled the bloody viciousness of any of today's most gruesome slasher movies. And this is a reference to the pamphlet. In the towns of Septerad and Bedburg, near Cologne, in High Germany, there was continually brought upon and nourished one Stup Peter, who from his youth was greatly inclined to evil and the practicing of wicked arts, even from 20 years of age, or 12 years of age, till 20, and so forwards till his dying day, insomuch that surfeiting in the damnable desire of magic, necromancy, and sorcery, acquainting himself with many infernal spirits and fiends, insomuch that forgetting the God that made him and the Savior that shed his blood, made man's redemption. In the end, careless of salvation, gave both soul and body to the devil forever, for small carnal pleasures in this life, that he might be famous and spoken of on earth, though he lost heaven thereby. The devil, who hath a ready ear to listen to the lewd motions of cursed men, promised to give him whatsoever his heart desired during his mortal life. Whereupon this vile wretch neither desired riches nor promotion, nor was his fancy satisfied with any external or outward pleasure, but having a tyrannous heart and a most cruel, bloody mind, requested that at his pleasure he might work his malice on men, women, and children in the shape of some beast, whereby he might live without dread or danger of life, and unknown to be the executor of any bloody enterprise which he meant to commit. The devil, who saw him a fit instrument to perform mischief, as a wicked fiend pleased with the desire of wrong and destruction, gave unto him a girdle, which, being put around him, was straight transformed into the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled unto brands of fire, a mouth great and wide, with the most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body and mighty paws. And no sooner should he put off the girdle, but presently he should appear in his former shape, according to the promotion of a man, as if he had never been changed. All right, let's see what's going on in the comments. Hi, Rebecca. How are you? So Zul asks, are we talking about a lichen? Yes, we are talking about a story, supposedly a true story about a gentleman by the name of Peter Stump, or Stoof, depending on how you want to pronounce that. And he was well known, or was known as the werewolf of Bedburg, Germany. And this would have occurred back during the, I believe, the 1500s. Yeah, sometime during the 1500s. So yeah, it is about werewolves. Let's see. And then Maud says, I'm super cold. It's 68 in my room. Had to grab a Serapa. Yeah, we're getting some cold weather down here too. It feels marvelous. And then John Biggs said 12. He started young, bad seed. And there's a lot of debate. There's a lot of debate. You know, a lot of times these stories were kind of really allegories of what other things may have been going on at the time, and were put more into folklore to tell a story. But there are a lot of different camps of thought on this particular story. But they do have the original pamphlets in the British Museum, so it is based on some sort of fact. And let's see. Maud says, oh, wow, this guy was a total sadistic nut. Yeah, we're going to get into the actual crimes here in just a moment. And then John says, let's see, wonder where I can get a silver bullet. I don't think silver bullets played into the mythos at this point in time. But it would be neat to have one. It would be very, very neat to have one. And let's see if I can check it here. That might be a little bit easier. Hold on just a second, guys. My gimbal is okay. So Rebecca says, I heard about it. I live in Prum, Germany, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Yeah, it's a fascinating story. And it's just one, for whatever reason, you don't hear a lot spoken about it for whatever reason, but the story itself is extremely interesting. It's extremely interesting. All right, so Peter Stubb was a wealthy farmer in the rural community of Bedburg, Germany, which was located in the electorate of Cologne, Germany, or Colin, however you may want to pronounce that. The community knew him as a pleasant enough widower and father of 2 adolescent children, whose wealth ensured him a measure of respect and influence. So Rebecca says, I lived there when I was younger. Okay, very, very cool. But this was Peter Stubbs' public face. His true nature erupted through some black scar in his soul to satisfy a bloodlust when he donned the skin of a wolf. or what they consider a belt of a wolf, a wolf pelt belt, a wolf pelt belt. At the time, Catholics and Protestants were at war for the hearts and minds of the populace, which brought invading armies from both faiths to Bedburg. So Bedburg was kind of a center of a lot of shit going on. There were also outbreaks of the dreaded Black Plague, so conflict and death were no stranger to the people of the region, which perhaps provided fertile ground for the awakening of Stoop's foul deeds. For many years, farmers around Bedburg were mystified with the strange deaths of some of their cows. Day after day, for many weeks, they would find cattle dead in the pastures, ripped open as if by some savage animal. The farmers naturally suspected wolves, but this was actually the beginning of Peter Stoop's unnatural compulsion to mutilate and kill. The insatiable drive would soon escalate to attacks on his neighboring villagers. Children began to disappear from their farms and homes. Young women vanished from the paths they traveled daily. Some were found dead, horribly mutilated. Others were never found. The community was thrown into a panic. Hungry wolves were again suspected, and the villagers armed themselves against the animals. Some even feared a more devious creature, a werewolf, who could walk among them unsuspected as a man, then transform into a wolf to satisfy his hunger. Over the course of his murderous career, Peter Stoop was responsible for the deaths of at least 13 children, 2 pregnant women, numerous livestock, and these were no ordinary murders. The young women among his victims were sexually assaulted before they were torn apart. With the pregnant women, he ripped the fetuses from their wombs and ate their hearts, panting hot and raw, which he later described as dainty morsels. Small children were strangled, bludgeoned, and throats ripped open with his bare hands. Some were disemboweled and partly eaten. Lambs and calves were ripped apart and devoured raw. So let's stop right there and let's see what's going on with the comments. So Zul says, silver bullets do not work on lichens. Let's see, and Frank said, so early skinwalker. Yeah, in a way, you know, and if you look at some of the older werewolf folklore, I believe there were a couple of cases. I know there were a couple of cases, but there were a couple of specific cases that came out of like the area of France and the French countryside of, you know, wolf pelts or wolf pelt belts or wolf pelts themselves that would give men supernatural powers to transform into basically serial killers. You know, this was, I think, you know, applying our knowledge of today would have been a very easy way to, if you had the compulsion to kill, to dress as a wolf, and you know, that just, to me, that just seems to make some sense. But a wolf pelt, like belts, girdles, and the skins themselves were seen in some of the further back folklore as kind of the avenue to the transformation. So it wasn't until later that the whole full moon thing came into being. All right, let's see. And so Frank said, yes, so early serial killer, exactly. And, you know, that could have been an explanation for this too. You know, it could have very well been, you know, a religious base. You always have to find scapegoats to make an example of. That could be one. Could be that he was truly a disturbed person and had the need to kill. So yeah, an early version of serial killers. but obviously something happened here. Something happened that and there were people that died because of it. So we're going to get into the story here in just a second and see what some of these accounts were. And then Angie says, I love listening to your stories, Odd Mother. Thank you so much. I love telling them. And I do like to bring you guys things that you don't normally hear. I mean, we could cover stuff like, Waverly Hall and the Velisca House and things like that, which I have brought up in some of, my stories. But I really like to touch on the stuff that you just don't hear a whole lot about, rather than kind of mainstream horror. So let's see. All right. Okay, so let's get back to it. All right, so going into the murders themselves. In one instance of triple murder, Stubbs saw two men and a woman taking a walk outside the city walls of Bedburg, and he crouched behind basically kind of a patch of brush to be hidden from sight. He called out to one of the men by name and with the pretense that he needed help with some lumber. When the young man joined him out of sight of the others, Stubb bashed his head in. When the man didn't return, the second young man went looking for him and was likewise killed. Fearing danger, the woman began to flee, but Stubb managed to catch her. The men's battered bodies were later found, but the woman never was, and it was thought that Stubb, after raping and killing her, may have eaten her completely. At least one child was lucky enough to have escaped an attack. Several children were playing in a meadow among some cows. Stubb ran after them, grabbing one small girl by the neck. As the other children ran away, Stubb tried to rip her throat out, but his fingers were prevented from doing so by her stiff high collar. This gave her time to cry out. This cry alerted the cattle, which, fearing the safety of their calves, charged after Stubb. He released the girl and fled. The girl survived. It is not known if she or any of the other children were able to identify Stubb. So there seems to be some reference there that it may have been more in line with the fact that he was wearing a pelt versus a pelt belt. So, and does kind of give credence to the whole serial killer angle on that. Now, this little girl is the only known survivor of Stubb's bloody rampage. Perhaps his most fiendish murder he reserved for his own family. Stubb had incestuous relations with his sister and his own daughter, whom he impregnated. He also murdered his son, his firstborn. Stubb led the boy into the forest, killing him and then eating his brain. By definition, Peter Stubb was a monster, yet all the while he remained unsuspected by the townspeople. And the pamphlet refers to this as a sundry times he would go through the streets of Colon, Bedburg, and Keparat in comely habit and very civilly, as one well known to all the inhabitants hereabout, and oftentimes was he saluted of those whose friends and children he had butchered, though nothing suspected for the same. So in other words, what this pamphlet is saying and you run across this when you start reading some of like the Old English and stuff like that, that were written by people that they would almost spell out things phonetically in a way, was that they're referring to the fact that it was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type situation. He had no problem, just acting like that, knowing that he may have murdered a particular person's family member and then interacting with them on a daily basis as if, nothing had happened. It's very sadistic. Or it could be that the man was completely innocent. Or it could mean that he may have had some sort of mental deficiency, um, to where he didn't remember, if if he did have like murderous rampages and things like that. But the pamphlet does go on to say that he just carried on as normal, as if nothing had happened. Um, and it wouldn't surprise me either if he probably didn't help search, which again kind of brings back the whole serial killer angle. It's very, very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Later, Stobe would reportedly confess that, like I said, at age 12, he engaged in the art of black magic and succeeded in summoning the devil, explaining that Beelzebub had presented him with a magical belt that would allow him to assume the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkled unto brands of fire, a mouth great and wide, with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body and mighty paws. So let's see what's going on in the comments real quick. So John says, cows to the rescue. That's a new one. Yeah. And if you read in the pamphlet itself, it goes on to say that it may have been, God's virtue that may have possessed the cows to save the small child, that she was a virtuous child. But it does make sense. I mean, if you have bulls that have a harem of cows and calves, as well as the mother, heifers, they're going to protect their young from what they feel is a threat. So whether it was a wolf, or he assumed the likeness of a wolf, or even cosplayed as a wolf, to commit these deeds, these horrible deeds, they did see him as a threat. So I thought that was kind of a cool story. But they never mentioned the little girl's name, just that she was saved by the herd of cows. Yeah, he was very bestial, Frank. Absolutely. And this went on for some time. This wasn't. I think it did probably start to escalate a lot more, but it wasn't like a rampage to where it happens very quickly. He apparently this went on for a number of years. Yes, the cosplay murders. That very well. Yeah, the cosplay murders. He could have so Frank says he could have can't talk. He could have put them somewhere in his life, which it would explain the werewolf to a T. It really would. It really would, and it kind of brings back. I don't know if our younger generation ever saw the movie Sybil, where the girl had I think she had like 12 alternate identities, and one really wouldn't, like, that one would take control at a certain time, and that could be the case. There was a lot of mass hysteria when we were talking about the Pied Piper of Hamlin. We got into that a little bit, that there was a lot of mass hysteria that went on during that time. And they believe a lot of that was due to the fact that life was just really, really hard back then. I mean, much, much harder even than probably our settlers and stuff had when America was being colonized. So it was rough times, a lot of things that they could not explain about their natural world. So I imagine life was very, very stressful. So yeah, it could have been a way for him to kind of separate that from his day-to-day life versus these needs that he had. Yeah, I like the cosplay murders. I think that's an amazing name. I like that. I like that. Let's see. And then Rebecca says, it's funny no one thought it was him. Well, he was highly respected. He was highly respected. People liked him. It's kind of like that situation to where you hear about these awful, serial killers that did these horrendous things. And 9 times out of 10, you'll hear people say, he was just a very, very nice person. I would have never have thought, that he would have, done these crimes. You very, very rarely hear people say, oh, yeah, he was a nutbag. I was just waiting for, the point when somebody was going to come over there and see what was going on. That's pretty rare. So yeah, but it is odd. It is odd, but he does eventually get caught. Furry's Fury. He was the first furry. No one expects, dun dun dun, the Spanish Inquisition. Oh my God, I love Monty Python. All right, so let's see where we were. Okay. So Stubb must have thought himself invincible through the power of his magic belt. Yet it was this belief that ended his reign of terror. When the limbs of several missing people were found in a field, the villagers were further convinced that a ravenous wolf was responsible, and so several hunters set out with their dogs to pursue the predator. The dogs chased the animal until they had cornered it. The hunters were sure that they were chasing a wolf, but when they came to the spot where the dogs had cornered the beast, there cowered Peter Stoop. Being trapped with no room for escape, Stoop removed his magic belt and transformed from the wolf to his human form. The hunter saw no magic belt, as Stoop later claimed he had, but only an ordinary walking stick in his hand. At first, they disbelieved their own eyes. After all, Stoop was a respected, long-time resident of Bedburg. How could he be a werewolf? Perhaps this wasn't really Peter Stoop at all. They reasoned, but a devilish trick. So they escorted Stoop to his house and determined that he was indeed the Peter Stoop they knew. Peter Stoop was arrested and tried for the crimes. According to one of the primary sources detailing the events, a translated copy from the original German accounts, again, the damnable life and death of Peter Stoop, after being put on the rack, and this is from the pamphlet, after being put on the rack, but before the authorities had a chance to torture him, he voluntarily confessed his whole life and made known the villainies which he had committed for the space of 25 years. When asked about the location of the belt, Stoop insisted that he dropped it just prior to being captured, which directly led to his capture. After a search for the belt, where Stoop claimed he dropped it, turned up nothing, it was taken as a sign that Lucifer himself had snatched the evil artifact back before it could fall into anyone else's hands. Which, if you go by the, more of the Christianic look on Lucifer, he would have probably left it laying there so that it could fall in the hands of someone else. Though fantastical, this account was corroborated by the group of hunters who had captured Stoop and, as mentioned, swore blind that they'd been pursuing a large wolf when they happened upon the shape-shifting Stoop. Now, some versions that you will find will refer to the wolf also missing a hand. Stoop maintained that he used the belt over the years to turn into a werewolf. While making use of this unfathomable power, Stoop claimed that he was overcome with an intense urge to consume blood and flesh. An urge he managed to state for many years by killing sheep and newborn lambs, often with his teeth, and drinking their still warm blood. Stoop claimed that sometime later, he then moved on to murdering and consuming human victims, which again does not fall out of the realm of a folklorish serial killer. They do normally start with cruelty to animals, and it usually amplifies and eventually turns to, their own species, turns to killing humans. And we know from Dahmer, it is not unusual, for cannibalism to be one of those uh, like ticks. Part of their MO, what they enjoy doing. So it's very possible, he could have had some traits much like Dahmer. Um, and drinking blood has happened often too. So let's see what's going on in the comments real quick. Let's see. So Angie says, "Have y'all seen the movie Winchester? Are you talking about the house of the house itself, like Mrs. Winchester and the house that she lived in that's haunted?" Yeah, that was a good movie. So Angie says, "I did not know they had a museum about Winchester." Yeah, you can actually go to that house. I don't know what they're really doing right now with all the COVID and stuff, but you can actually tour that house. And Angie says Rose Red. Yeah, and Rose Red was creepy. I read the book, and the book was super creepy too. But it did have undertones of the Winchester house, to where it was constantly being added onto and built onto, for varying reasons. Let's see. So it's Santa Cruz, California. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's see. So exactly how many people Stoop is supposed to have killed wasn't made clear by the official account, though he explicitly admitted to killing 14, some say 16, children, supposedly including his own son, whose brain he was rumored to have eaten raw, and 2 pregnant women whose unborn children he also cannibalized. Stoop also explained that the belt gave him a voracious sexual appetite that he courted many mistresses over the years, including a succubus sent to him by Satan. Beyond the succubus, Stoop's sexual conquests were reportedly to have included his own daughter, who purportedly bore him a child, which he killed as mentioned, his sister, and a local gossip, sometimes identified as his cousin, known as Catherine Trompin. His daughter and Trompin were subsequently accused of being party to many of Stump's murders, and like him, were also sentenced to death. It may well be the case that Stump and his 2 cohorts really did commit brutal murders, serial killers seemingly having existed throughout history, and it's not uncommon that there may be, be more than one. In other words, working as a small group. And he may have really confessed to all those things as reported in the official account of the events, which, due to their shocking nature, were widely copied throughout Europe after his execution. However, it has also been speculated that he may have simply been a victim of the politics of his time and hysteria over werewolves and other supernatural creatures. Bedburg, formerly a Protestant region, had recently been overthrown in 1587 by Count Werner von Schlamm-Reffenscheid-Dyck and his soldiers, who were staunchly Catholic. Thus, it has been speculated that perhaps Stump, likely a Protestant as most were who grew up in the region, was made an example of. Whatever the truth behind the crimes, we do know from detailed accounts the absolutely brutal way Stump was executed. While Stump's mistress and daughter were sentenced to be burned to death, Stump himself was sentenced to one of the most cruel forms of capital punishment known at the time, being broken on the wheel. And if you're not familiar with being broken on the wheel, it's really, really bad. Like, when you think of medieval torture devices, a lot of people automatically go to like the the Iron Maiden and things like that. There were torture devices that were so much worse. And the wheel was one of them. Thus, on October 31st, 1589, Stump was dragged through the streets of Colon, the nearest city to the hamlet of Bedburg, and strapped to a large wooden wheel with his limbs splayed out at awkward, excruciating angles. Searing hot pincers were then used to tear 10 strips of flesh from Stump's legs and arms, exposing the bone. And can anyone guess why they would use searing hot pincers? I'll give you a minute. I'll check the comments. Why would they use searing hot pincers to rip the flesh off his bone? Yeah, so Angie says she remembers seeing the Iron Maiden in Sleepy Hollow. Yeah, I think that I would have probably would have rather had the Iron Maiden. To me, that would have probably been much less painful than many of the other torture devices that they used to use. Yes, Maud, cauterization. They did not want him to die too soon. And then Frank said, "Dear God," so they killed his entire family. They absolutely killed his entire family. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so then using using the searing hot pincers were then used, like I said, to tear 10 strips of flesh from Stump's legs and arms, exposing the bone. Once that was done, then using a heavy, blunted hatchet, the bones of his arms and legs were expertly broken one by one. So they would do the fingers, the hands, the lower arm, the upper arm. Same with the legs, the toes, the feet, the shins, and then your large femurs here. They would probably save that to last because you can bleed out if you break your femur. After this, Stump's head was hacked from his body. His body was then burned along with his daughter, Belial. And the little pamphlet says, "Whose beauty and good grace was such a derused commendations, and a gossip named Catherine Tropin." So they talk about how sweet and beautiful Stump's daughter must have been, even though she was evil at heart. And then the gossip, Catherine Tropin. So it sounds to me like people really didn't like this Catherine lady. By the directive of the magistrate, a warning to other potential evil doers and devil worshippers was put in place for all to see. The wheel on which Stump was tortured was set high upon a pole from which 16 long strips of wood were to be hung. These strips represented his 16 known victims. So in this case, and if you look at the old woodcut prints, they're stating 16. So somewhere between 13 and 16. So they took the wheel, had a pole, took the wheel, put it up like this, and then they had strips of wood that went all the way around the wheel, and each strip of wood was marked with a victim's name. Okay. Atop that was the framed likeness of a wolf, and above, on the sharpened point of the pole, was placed Peter Stump's severed head. It was left on public display just like that. And the books or the pamphlet states, "A warning to all sorcerers and witches which unlawfully follow their own deluish imagination to the ruin and destruction of their souls eternal." Whatever the truth of his reported crimes and confessions, Today, Stump lives in infamy as the werewolf of Bedburg, and actually probably the first real account of what we think of as the werewolf mythos. Um, and the weird thing about it is too, and some people are aware of this, some people are not. It was also probably the first werewolf trial. Now there were many cases um, of werewolf trials, which were lesser known in Eastern Europe, most often in like the Baltic areas, and these actually ran parallel to the historic witch trials of Europe between the years of 1500 and 1660. And like I said, in which up to 80,000 suspected witches were put to death. However, again, the werewolf trials actually outweighed the witch trials in more of the Baltic areas. So at that time, there were werewolf trials that went on, running parallel with what we know as, the witch trials during the medieval times. So let's check the comments real quick. Yes, head, shoulders, knees, and toes. I wonder if that song wasn't around then, but that would have been an awesome song, I guess, for the executioner to sing. Right. So in popular culture, we can see references to the Werewolf of Bedburg. There's a U.S. metal band, Macabre, who recorded a song about Peter Stoop entitled "The Werewolf of Bedburg." It can be found on the Murder Metal album. There is a German horror punk band, The Other, that recorded a song about Peter Stoop entitled "Werewolf of Bedburg" on their Casket Case album. Let's see, there have been mentions of Stoop in the Big Top Scooby-Doo. Uses a proportion of Lucas's mayor's woodcut for the of the execution of Stoop in 1589. Doctor Who, audio drama, Peter Stoop was in fact a werewolf. I guess he was known as Lupus Garou, which reminds me of the Rougarou. So Lupus Garou, he managed to escape before he was executed and lived for another 5 centuries. This was in Doctor Who. He was defeated by the 5th Doctor in Brazil in 2080, and it is implied that he ate both the Grand Duchess, Anastasia, and Lord Lucan. Journalist and fiction writer J.E. Reich partly based her story, The Werewolves of Aspach, on the life of Peter Stoop. And the story of Peter Stoop was also told in episode 3 of the podcast Lore, which is a really cool podcast if anyone has ever listened to it. It's more of a storytelling, kind of like what we do here in a way, but more of a story. But it's a really neat it's a really neat podcast, and I think that they do as well have a TV series on that, and I think it's on, is it Prime? That's really, really good. And it's been featured on that as well. So let's see what's going on in the comments. I hope you enjoyed that story. I tried to stretch it out a little bit because there's really not a whole lot on that story. But again, it's definitely a story worth mentioning because it's just extremely interesting. So what do you guys think? Do you think he was just a victim of circumstance? Basically the Catholic Church trying to make an example of him? Do you believe he may have had some sort of mental, issues there, whether it was, split personalities, or do you think he was just a straight up serial killer? There's a couple of different rabbit holes you can go down with on this one. And then Frank says macabre rules. Yeah, and it didn't give me a date on that one, so you probably know better based on that album. Lupus Guru, doesn't that translate to wolf wolf? You would think so. Rukaru. And the Rukaru is kind of a cool, it's kind of a like Southern Louisiana like folklore and stuff. And I think the Rougarou actually comes in some other folklore outside of like the Louisiana culture. But it's different in how you get cursed. We'll have to cover that one night. The Rougarou is pretty cool. And you know, really to talk about that, that's kind of like Ricky Ricardo. Isn't Ricky Ricardo really Ricky? And so Frank says more than likely he was probably a victim of circumstance. Most likely. But at the same time, you know, he could have, you know, we look at Elizabeth Bathory. You know, some do believe that she was just a victim of circumstance. She was a woman, being that her husband had died. She was powerful. She wouldn't take any shit. And she ran, you know, her region after her husband's death. And that really, really kind of upset, I believe it was her uncle or her um, brother-in-law. I can't remember. I'm thinking it was her uncle or great uncle who was kind of put in place to help her run that region, and it was for power. But you know, she could have been a victim of circumstance, or she could have just been, you know, a murderous nut. Um, who knows? And then Maud says that Bathory was a victim of politics. Yeah, there are a couple of podcasts that I listen to. Astonishing Legends is very, very good at going like deep, like little known logic, because they do have a whole research team that does the research for them. So you can find some really interesting stuff. And they did I think a 2 or 3 parter on Bathory. And it went really, really deep. And yeah, it was a lot like the Jersey Devil. You know, there was a lot of politics that were going on in that area at the time. And anytime you have like two ruling houses, so to speak, you know, a lot of times, especially with everything just being so religious at that time, um, you know, it helped to make accusations of witchcraft and things like that if you were trying to outdo your enemy, or gain power or gain property, you know, that kind of thing. So you know, a lot of these people, as devilish as they're, you know, they live on in infamy, they very well could have just been victims of circumstance or politics. Frank says we could do a whole show on Bathory. Yeah, Bathory is she's fascinating, you know, and I hate to say that. I mean, if she was actually someone that believed, you know, she was just narcissistic and had a problem with growing old and believed that if you bathed in the blood of you know, innocent girls, that it would somehow preserve you. You know, I hate to say that, but you know, we're a curious lot. And a lot of times the taboo, you know, of like awful crimes and things like that are just very, very interesting. They really kind of spark thought, a lot of cognitive thought as to why people may have done what they've done. And then Angie says, I had chicken pox when I was little. Well, I had chicken pox as well. We used to have, now when I was growing up, way back in like 1800s, we used to have chicken pox parties. So, you know, if your friend got chicken pox, then everybody would go over there and hang out with him for the day so that everybody could have chicken pox at the same time. Um, Not so common these days. Not so common these days. And Azul says, we are all victims of politics. That is true. And then Maud said, I had scarlet fever and scarlatina. Now that's scary. I'm glad you were okay. Scarlet fever is no joke. No joke. All right, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. It looks like our time together is almost at an end. I will not be here next Wednesday, big feast day the next day. So I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and eat well and spend time with loved ones. Absolutely check out the rest of our content artists coming up this week. Let's see, tomorrow, I'm not sure who will be on tomorrow, if anyone, but we will have Sid should be on Friday.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
Oh, hi! First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
people.
All right. How are you guys doing tonight? I guess we'll give it a little bit of time, get a couple people in here, you know. All right.
Let's get to it.
So, you know, with Valentine's Day coming up, my least favorite holiday. Hey, Jillian. So, yeah, with Valentine's Day coming up, we thought that we would talk about one of, if not the most intelligent serial killers that there is. He's still alive. Rodney Alcala, the dating game killer. All right. So, hi, Calvin. Hi, Ray. How are you guys doing today? Hi, Jillian. I guess I will do my warning. Here it is. Warning, the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers and or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only. All right. Hey, Patricia.
Hello.
All right, so Rodney Alcala. He was born Ricardo Jacques Alcala, and I can't read the last name because there's a squiggly line underneath it. Berger. I think it says Berger. But other names were John Berger, spelled with an E, or Berger, I should say. John Berger, spelled like the food. And Rod Alcala. Hello, Palmderman. And hello, Mikey. What's up? Survived the ice storm. I'm glad to hear that. All right, so. What did I do? I did things to the screen. So in case you guys don't know who the gentleman we're talking about today is, this is Rodney Alcala. He... Thank you, Nancy. How are you tonight? Just my hair looks purple there now.
Yay.
So here we go. Oh, Bucor. It was his name, or Bucor. So Rodney James Alcala, born August 23rd, 1943, is an American convicted rapist and serial killer who was sentenced to death here in California. Rodney Hamburger.
California?
No, I got distracted. Rodney Hamburger. Sorry, ADD moment. California for 5 murders committed in the state between 1977 and 1979, and received an additional sentence of 25 years to life after pleading guilty to 2 homicides committed in New York in 71 and 77. Alcala's true crime count remains unknown and could be much higher. They believe it's somewhere between 8 and 130. Let me scoot on up here so I could read better, guys. So he compiled a collection of more than 1,000 photographs of women and teenage girls and boys. Many of them were in explicit poses. And in 2016, he was charged formally with the 1977 murder of a woman identified in one of his photos. Alcala is known to have assaulted one other photographic subject. Give it to you. Lunar Tides. Great brand, by the way. So, sorry. He was known to have assaulted at least one other of his photographic subjects. And the police have speculated that others could have been rape or murder victims as well. Prosecutors have said that Alcala toyed with his victims, strangling them until they lost consciousness, and then waiting until they revived, sometimes repeating the process several times before finally killing them. Hi, Carl. Hey, guys. Happy early love day. Thank you, Psychomantian. All right. So, I brought the wrong notes up. Here we go. So, one police detective described Alcala as a killing machine. Others have compared him to Ted Bundy. Alcala is sometimes called the dating game killer because of his appearance on the 1978 on the television show The Dating Game in the midst of his murder spree. He actually went on live national television while in the middle of a murder spree. So here's the logo for The Dating Game. This is a very blurry picture of him, and he won, by the way. He actually won. And the woman that was on there, they talked in the backstage afterwards, where like when they're supposed to set up their date and everything like that. And she said she just had a horrible feeling and that they never went on that date, and which is very lucky for her because he probably would have done some horrible ass things to her. There you go. I don't know why. I just thought this was a little funny. This is Rodney with his date on The Dating Game. And this is Rodney in 2016 being charged for that other murder. And for the record, yes, such a bad logo. He was basically a douche canoe. Yes.
Very much so.
The logo was so bad, I know. Let me see if I can find something to show you guys real fast. What?
I was going to say it was.
Ta-da! Thought you guys might enjoy that. Is that Howard Stern? Yeah, and she was like, oh, hell no. Yeah, she said she got a bad feeling. Just didn't do it. So his early life, Rodney Alcala was born in San Antonio, Texas. And his mother was Ana Maria Gutierrez. His father was Raul Alcala Bucor. And in 1951, his father moved the family to Mexico and then abandoned them 3 years later. In 54, when Alcala was about 11 years old, his mother moved him and his two sisters to suburban Los Angeles. In 61, at the age of 17, Alcala joined the U.S. Army. He served as a clerk. In 64, after what was described as a nervous breakdown.
Funny about like all these like serial killers who actually serve in the army. They never actually serve in battle or anything like that. They always serve as like clerks or something like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
They never do actual. They're never actually a part of the war or anything like that. They're always back behind the scenes. They find a way to get out of it. And then when they get out of the army, that's when they can become very violent.
So if I didn't mention it already, Alcala has the highest, one of the highest, if not the highest, IQ out of serial killers. It was 167. He could have used that for so much, but he used it. I mean, he didn't even use it. Let's be real. Yeah. I mean, he had an 11-year killing spree. And it's probably more than the 130 that were mentioned. So, in 64, after what was described as a nervous breakdown during which he went AWOL and hitchhiked from Fort Bragg to his mother's house, he was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder by a military psychiatrist and discharged on medical grounds. Other diagnoses later proposed by various psychiatric experts at his trials included narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, malignant narcissism, and psychopathy, and sexual sadism comorbidities. After leaving the Army, Alcala graduated from UCLA School of Fine Arts and later studied film under Roman Polanski at New York University. Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually kind of impressive, actually.
Like I said, he's really smart.
Well, no, he actually has a connection to Polanski and Manson,
Tate,
Sharon Tate, all that stuff.
So his early criminal history, Alcala committed his first known crime in 1968. An eyewitness in Los Angeles called police after watching him lure an 8-year-old girl named Holly Shapiro into his Hollywood apartment.
So he was living in Los Angeles.
Yeah. And so when police arrived, they kicked the door and the girl was found alive, raped and beaten with a steel bar.
Jesus Christ.
But Alcala had fled. He's horrible. This guy's horrible.
Yeah.
To evade the resulting arrest warrant, Alcala left the state and enrolled in NYU using another name, John Berger. In 1971, he obtained a counseling job at New Hampshire Arts Campus for Children using a slightly different alias, John Berger.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is the era that we're in right now in the 60s, like where it's like, I did some fucked up shit. I'm just going to change to my middle name and I'm going to get a job doing this stuff.
So in June of 1971, Cornelia Mitchell Crilly, a 23-year-old TWA flight attendant, was found raped and strangled in her Manhattan apartment. Her murder remained unsolved until 2011. The FBI added Alcala to its list of 10 most wanted in early 1971. A few months later, 2 children attending the arts camp noticed his photo on an FBI poster at the post office. Alcala was arrested and extradited to California. By then, Shapiro's parents had relocated their entire family to Mexico and refused to allow her to testify at Alcala's trial. Unable to convict him of rape.
So he got away with it.
Yeah. Unable to convict him of rape and attempted murder without their prime witness, prosecutors were forced to permit Alcala to plead guilty to a lesser charge of assault. In reality, like, he probably could have been like, fuck you. You don't even have a witness.
That's what happened.
No, but they were like, oh, you could just plead guilty to a lesser charge of assault. He could have been like, fuck you. You have this person saying I did something, but where's the evidence?
He didn't plead, did he?
He did.
He pled.
He pled to assault.
Jesus Christ.
Being that smart, you'd think that he would have known that.
Exactly.
Alcala was paroled after 17 months in 1974 under the indeterminate sentencing program, popular at the time.
You know, the crazy thing, if he actually was convicted in his time, he would never actually gotten the death penalty in any way, shape, or form. Shit, I can't speak right now.
Apparently.
In any way, shape, or form. I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine.
In any way, shape, or form, he would not have got the death penalty because at the time in California, there was no. That's when they had a moratorium on death penalty.
Well, the death penalty actually, he did. Never mind. I'll get to that in a second.
He did.
He got it in 79.
That's when the moratorium was uplifted.
Yeah.
On a death penalty in California.
Hi, Carl.
Hi, Carl.
In case I didn't say it already. So, he was paroled in 74 after 17 months under the indeterminate sentencing program that was popular at the time, which allowed parole boards to release offenders as soon as they demonstrated evidence of rehabilitation.
Can I bring it real fast? One of the most insane parts of the 70s and early 80s, like with William Bonham, who was a freeway killer, the I-5 killer, it was the same shit. They literally were like, oh, you're doing good. We're just going to go ahead and let you out. Like, that was, like, they were like, oh, there's overcrowding in the prisons. Like, let these guys out. Let's go ahead and just get them out of here. Like, get out.
Yeah.
I think the only person in this they never let out was Edmund Kemper. Edmund Kemper never.
Well, it's partially because they denied him.
Like,
but then he also said, like,
Kemper was like, we're not doing this. I know I'm going to go out and murder again. Please don't let me out. I'll fucking perform Aramatio again.
But that's the interesting part is there were a couple times that he's like, yeah, I want out. And then there were a couple times when he was like, guys, don't let me out.
Well, yeah, everyone's going to have their like little things with, you need to get out.
So less than 2 months after his release, he was rearrested for assaulting a 13-year-old girl identified in court records as, quote, Julie J.
Did he have
who
trauma,
accepted
like, to the head or anything like that? Did he have any of that stuff? Or was he like Ted Bundy where he was just
he was like
Ted up?
He was Ted Bundy.
Kind
of like that's what I was saying. They compared him to Ted Bundy earlier. And it was not just because of like some of the stuff he did. Oh God, I can't, Carl. I can't bring it up.
Can't
but
bring
that's
that one
funny.
up, Carl, but it's hilarious. It's very accurate.
Good luck on your ban for the comments.
Good luck on everything being banned out because Carl just put that up.
But it's hilarious. Okay, so less than 2 months after his release, he was rearrested for assaulting a 13-year-old girl identified in the court records as Julie J., who had accepted what she thought would be a ride to school. Once again, he was paroled
70s.
after 2 years because of the indeterminate sentence program.
It's crazy because all the bad shit that happened in the 70s
Could have been avoided.
No. Mind you, I was born in the 80s and I went to school in the 80s. When it came to the 90s, though, they were like, do not get in strangers' cars. Leave them alone and stay the fuck away from them if you're a kid. Because they'll fucking murder you.
Yeah.
Like it took almost 20 years
For them
people to like understand, don't fucking do this.
So, in 1977, after Alcala's second release, his Los Angeles parole officer took the unusual step of permitting a repeat offender and a known flight risk to travel to New York City.
New York City?
So, NYPD cold case investigators now believe that a week after arriving in Manhattan, Alcala killed Ellen Jane Hover.
If you guys are as old as me, you'll understand that reference to New York City. Paste picante sauce. I'm sorry.
I'm like, are you done?
No, I'm not.
God.
I'm going to keep going.
I'm going to have to repeat that entire sentence. All right, guys. Sorry about this. I'm going to repeat myself again. So, he was permitted to go to New York City, and the NYPD cold case investigators now believe that a week after arriving in Manhattan, he killed Ellen Jane Hover, a 23-year-old daughter of the owner of the popular Hollywood nightclub Ciro's, and the goddaughter of Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
How did he?
He was in New York. He made. Okay.
Are the rumors true?
No. So her father made both of them godfathers. You can do more than one.
I'm pretty sure you could.
You can have more than one on there.
You can do more than one godfather.
Dear God. So anyway, her remains were found buried on the grounds of the Rockefeller estate in Westchester County. So in 1978, Alcala worked for a short time at the LA Times as a typesetter and was interviewed by members of the Hillside Strangler Task Force as part of their investigation of known sex offenders.
So the same guy who was on Richard Ramirez.
Yep. And
what was his name again?
Oh gosh, I can't remember his name now.
Oh, it's fine. I know. That's crazy.
I would know it if I saw it again.
He was Italian. I know that.
But he also did talk to Pat Brown, and we'll get to that at one point too. So, although Alcala was ruled out as the Hillside Strangler, he was arrested and served a brief sentence for possession of marijuana.
Marijuana.
During this period, Alcala convinced hundreds of young men and women that he was a professional fashion photographer and photographed them for his portfolio. A Times coworker later recalled that Alcala shared his photos with workmates. I thought it was weird, but I was young. I didn't know anything, she said. When I asked why he took the photos, he said their moms asked him to. And I remember the girls were naked.
Damn. Like, was it actually like underage girls and stuff like that? Like, it
was a grouping. It was underage girls. It was women that were of age.
Brutal, man.
It was also boys.
Oh, he needs to be
He's not murdered. He's still alive.
Oh, are you fucking serious?
In one of our California prisons.
Fucking California, I swear to God. Murder this guy.
So, he was a professional photographer, or he said he was a professional. So in my mind, I was being a model for him, said a woman who allowed Alcala to photograph her in 1979. The portfolio also included spread after spread of naked teenage boys, she said.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. This is brutal.
Most of the photos are sexually explicit, and most remain unidentified. Police fear that some of the subjects may be additional cold case victims. In 1979, according to later trial testimony, Alcala knocked unconscious and raped 15-year-old Monique Hoyt while she was posing for photographs. Yeah. Sorry, this is a very brutal subject. I figure maybe you should put the trigger warning up one more time.
Her notification didn't go out.
I'm sorry. I am going to bring this one up because Carl edited his comment. Mr. Mustache, you haven't committed any genocide in prison. You may goose step the fuck out of here.
Our notification didn't go out.
How did the notification not go out?
That's why I don't have anything on there right now.
That is weird. Hey guys, can you guys do us a favor and share out right now? Because some interesting things are going on today. Like notifications not going out. So yeah, because some women he did legit pics for and others he didn't. You're right. Some weren't as lucky and some of them he did do legitimate pictures and allowed them to go. Yeah, what is going on here?
They didn't go out. I'm not getting them right now.
Sorry guys, I'm doing something real fast. I'm going to share some things. Post. There we go. If you can share, copy the YouTube link and post it onto MeWe, please.
Yes.
Or anybody.
Please share out.
Share out. We're having issues
right now.
So anyway, I guess I'll get back to this.
Look, not one bit.
I don't know, babe. So the dating game appearance. In 1978, Alcala was a contestant on the popular game show at the time, The Dating Game. Oh, thank you. Yeah, just like any post.
I'm all freaking out right now. I can't share anything out.
No, go to YouTube and copy it and go to MeWe. So, sorry guys. Yeah, anyway, ew. Thank you, Jillian. Thank you, everyone who's sharing out. Really appreciate it. So, in 1978, Alcala was a contestant on the popular game show, The Dating Game, hosted by Jim Lang. And he introduced himself as a successful photographer who got his start when his father found him in the dark room at the age of 13. Fully developed. Between takes, you might find him skydiving or motorcycling. It's on YouTube. Look, they're all out.
I get that.
Everyone else said they got notifications. Okay, guys. Give me 1 second.
Just go.
Hold on. I'm going to pause real fast. We are going to take a quick break. I'm going to do a commercial.
Hey, it's me, Nix, the Psycho Mantis, coming to you live from Psycho Mantium 13. Join us here throughout the week for all things in audio, visual, and literary content. You can also find us on the World Wide Web at psychomantium13.com. Join Psychomantium 13 and enter the weird.
All right, guys, we are back. Awesome. Oh, that's weird. Share button went poof.
Yeah, I'm not having any shares or anything on here. It's not showing any notifications. So whatever.
So
Let's just go.
babe. So a few Bachelor contestants later described Alcala as a very strange guy with bizarre opinions. And Alcala won the competition and a date with the Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, who subsequently refused to go out with him because she found him creepy. Criminal profiler Pat Brown noted that Alcala killed at least 3 women after his dating game appearance, speculated that this rejection might have been an exacerbating factor. One wonders what that did in his mind, Brown said. This is something that he would not take too well. Serial killers don't understand rejection. They think that something is wrong with the girl. Oh, she played me. Oh, she's playing hard to get. So, Samso murder and the first 2 trials. Robin Samso, a 12-year-old girl from Huntington Beach, disappeared somewhere between the beach and her ballet class on June 20th, 1979. Her decomposing body was found 12 days later in the LA foothills. Samso's friends told police that a stranger had approached them on the beach asking to take their pictures. Detectives circulated a sketch of the photographer, and Alcala's parole officer recognized him. During a search of Alcala's mother's house in Monterey Park, police found a rental receipt for a storage locker in Seattle. In the locker, they found Samso's earrings. Alcala was arrested in 1979 and held without bail. In 1980, he was tried and convicted and sentenced to death for Samso's murder, but the verdict was overturned by the California Supreme Court because jurors had been improperly informed of his prior sex crimes. In 1986, after a second trial, virtually identical to the first, except for the omission of the prior criminal record testimony, he was again convicted and sentenced to death. A Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel nullified the second conviction, in part because a witness was not allowed to support Alcala's contention that the park ranger who found Samso's body had been, quote, hypnotized by police investigators. Like, he was hypnotized by... They were hypnotized?
Happens. I
Like,
guess.
The police investigators were like, you found a girl.
You found this girl.
There's a body in front of you. Like, what the hell? For being such an intelligent person, he had has some fucked up theories here. So, additional victims. While preparing the third prosecution in 2003, Orange County, California investigators learned that Alcala's DNA, sampled under a new state law over his objections, matched semen left at the rape and murder scenes of 2 Los Angeles women. Additional evidence, including other cold case DNA matched in 2004, led to Alcala's indictment for the murders of 4 additional women. Jill Barkham, 18, a New York runway found rolled up like a ball in a Los Angeles ravine in 1977, and originally thought to have been a victim of the Hillside Strangler. Georgia Wixon, 27, bludgeoned in her Malibu apartment in 77. Charlotte Lamb, 31, raped and strangled and left in the laundry room in El Segundo in her apartment complex in 1978. Jill Parento, 21, killed in her Burbank apartment in 79. All of the bodies were found posed in carefully chosen positions. Another pair of earrings found in Alcala's Seattle storage locker had residue that matched Lamb's DNA. Yeah. So, during his incarceration between the second and third trials, Alcala wrote and self-published a book, You, the jury, in which he claimed innocence in the Samso case and suggested a different suspect. He also filed 2 lawsuits against the California penal system for a slip and fall incident and for refusing to provide him with a low-fat diet. So let's take a look here. Oh, I don't have any pictures of what he looks like now. Sorry, y'all. Thank you, Jessica. Appreciated. How are you? Didn't some web sleuths help identify many of his victims? I believe so. Yeah, actually. So, third joined trial. In 2003, prosecutors entered a motion to join the Samso charges with those of the 4 newly discovered victims. Alcala's attorneys contested it. As one of them explained, if you're a juror and you hear one murder case, you may be able to have reasonable doubt. But it's very hard to say you have reasonable doubt on all 5, especially when 4 of the 5 aren't alleged by eyewitnesses but are proven by DNA. In 2006, the California Supreme Court ruled in the prosecution's favor. And in February of 2010, Alcala stood trial on the 5 joint charges. For the third trial, Alcala elected to act as his own attorney. He took the stand in his own defense and for 5 hours played the roles of both interrogator and witnesses, asking himself questions.
So he did the same thing like Ted Bundy did.
Addressing himself as Mr. Alcala in a deeper voice than normal.
That's the same thing Ted Bundy did.
Yeah.
Right there.
And
I'm
then,
going to talk in a different voice right now.
and
Talking
then,
to Ted Bundy. He's like, oh, Mr. Sardine, man, I didn't do any of those murders. Not one bit.
when did he
Like-
turn into Dr. Roxo?
That's what happens. That's literally what Ted Bundy did and like these guys did. I'm gonna like project myself out and be fucking evil right now and try to be the
Right,
authoritarian. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
What a
you're
lunatic.
fucking interrogating yourself, bro.
What a lunatic.
Whilst it's the same with Ted Bundy. How stupid are you? You are so smart that you're fucking stupid right now. Shut the fuck up and let the fucking guy defend you and you'll get off.
So during this bizarre self-questioning and answering session, he told jurers, often
Same thing
in
as
a
Ted Bundy.
rambling monotone, that he was at Knott's Berry Farm
I was-
applying for a job as a
Look,
photographer
guys,
at the time that Samso was
You guys-
kidnapped.
you guys know an awesome fucking jam. Was it Smuckers? No, who makes it?
Knott's.
Jam. Like I was there making that shit. I'm just saying.
What if these people try to represent themselves in court? I don't know. That's
Yes.
narcissism.
It's very much
Absolutely.
narcissism. It is very right, Jillian. It's very much narcissism. They think they know more than everyone else. That's the reason why Ted Bundy
Didn't get off with it.
he didn't get off. He didn't, even though like not to go back on Ted Bundy because we covered him already.
Keep going back.
Ted Bundy had an out because
You're
the
yelling.
fucking sheriff in Colorado fucked up his Miranda rights and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they were like, you can go right now. Just let this guy defend you. That's all you gotta do. Let this lawyer.
And he's
this-
like, no.
This wasn't even a badass lawyer. It was like a public defender. It was like some guy they just assigned to him. All he is say he didn't get his Miranda rights read to him. And here's Ted Bundy coming in here. No, I will defend myself and I will fucking come over here and I'm smarter than you, Mr. Defender. That's literally what fucking happened.
So,
And then all of a sudden Ted Bundy is fucking put in jail. Mr. fucking serial killer who could have got away with every fucking thing, just like Rodney fucking Alcala could have got away with every goddamn thing he did, but him being more smarter than the fucking lawyer because he's a fucking narcissist. I'm sorry.
They do have a lot of similarities because they're all. He was actually a psychopath.
It's one of those things that it gets to me with these fucking. The reason why I like Edmund Kemper so much is because Edmund Kemper was like,
He's
Oh,
extremely
fuck.
intelligent, and he used that intelligence.
And he was very empathetic, and he also like was like,
Sorry,
"Fuck,
guys.
there's something wrong here.
There's
I
hair
gotta
in my
stop doing
boobs.
this." But here's Rodney Alcala.
more
Here's
smarter.
fucking
That's
Ted-
right, Julie.
Here's fucking Ted Bundy. Here's fucking the Confessions Killer. What's his name? All these other guys.
Henry Lee Lucas.
Henry Lee Lucas. All these other guys were like,
who
I
had
am
like an extremely low
so,
IQ.
He had a low IQ, but he was like, I'm so much smarter than everyone else. I'm gonna do this. Like, shut the fuck up, man, and get out of your own way.
So
I'm
okay,
sorry.
we can stop that now.
I've always had this argument in my head with serial killers. Like always.
So okay, basically what he said. God, sorry guys, there's hair in my boobs, and it's Frank's hair.
It's my head.
Okay, so he said he was at Knott's Berry Farm, which is a place I frequented as a kid, by the way, a lot.
Well, not when he was there, though.
Well, yeah. I mean, I
You were
wasn't
born
born
in
in
80.
78.
You were born in 86.
Yes.
Less than 10 years later.
But they do have photographers there. And they do like the family photo, they do like the old-timey photos. Like
I do enjoy those with like the theme parks and stuff like that.
yeah, so I'm assuming he was actually applying to be a photographer in that little in his head at the old-timey place. You know, like where you dress up and you do take photos and you have serious face for it. No respect. So he showed the jury a portion of his 78 appearance on the dating game in an attempt to prove that the earrings found in his Seattle locker were his and not Samso's. Jed Mills, the actor who competed against Alcala on the show, told reporter that earrings were not yet socially acceptable.
I'm sorry.
We're not yet a socially acceptable accoutrement for men.
Shut the
And in
fuck
78,
up. Get out of your own way.
I had never seen a man with an earring in his ear, he said. I would have noticed that on him.
I'm sorry. Shut the fuck up and get out of your own way. And then here's the narcissist. No.
I mean, so he's trying to show the dating game footage, but if you look, like, you can't see his ears. Oh, there, you see a lobe, but there's no earrings. No earrings.
Shut the fuck up and get out of your own way. Shut the fuck
Hi,
up.
Tom.
And just get out of your own fucking way, man.
Basically. So Alcala made no significant attempt to dispute the 4 added charges, other than to assert that he could not remember killing any of the women.
Yes, Jillian, they're so smart, they're stupid.
Yes.
Thank you.
So-
Can you bring that comment up real fast? That's a very...
Right?
They're very much book smart. They're not street smart.
He's just crazy. So, Alcala made no attempt to dispute the 4 added charges, other than to assert that he didn't remember killing them.
Did he get off on these charges?
No.
Okay.
As part of his closing argument, he played the Arlo Guthrie song, Alice's Restaurant, in which the protagonist tells a psychiatrist that he wants to kill. After less than 2 days of deliberation,
Christ,
the
man.
jury convicted him on all 5 first-degree murder charges. A surprise witness during the penalty phase of the trial was Tali Shapiro, Alcala's first known victim.
Wait.
The little girl that the family took her to Mexico.
Oh, man, that's a very tough girl. That's a very... That's a very strong thing to do, especially like to confront your attacker. Oh my god, man, she is a hero right
First
there.
off, Alcala looks like that one weird authority figure who I think works as Surgeon General.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. And my dad used to make us listen to that every Thanksgiving. What?
Wait. They're running Alcala.
No, the song Alice's Restaurant.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Stop real fast. The one thing I got from that, I know it's not this, but you're like, well, we had the Rodney Alcala argument that's on tapes, and my dad made me listen to this every Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Excuse me?
Excuse
That was my
you.
foot.
God.
That was my foot. I didn't fucking rip ass on fucking tape.
Now my hair looks purple. Awesome.
I'm sorry, Jillian.
So
I can see why you guys do the Sinister Sisters. parlor. No.
Richard-
I'm kidding.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah.
Damn it! I'm not going to get through this, and it's not even that many notes.
Oh, there's no one out for us.
So, Richard Rappaport, a psychiatrist paid by Alcala, and the only defense witness testified that borderline personality disorder
Wait, this motherfucker
Could-
had money?
explain Alcala's claims
Did he have
that he
money?
had no memory. What are you talking about?
What, he paid by Alcala? He had money?
Yes.
Are you fucking kidding me? Most serial killers don't have money
Okay.
like this.
So, let me go back to what I was saying. Richard Rappaport, a psychiatrist paid by
Rip
Alcala,
ass. It was my foot.
And the only defense witness testified that borderline personality disorder could explain Alcala's claims that he had no memory of committing the murders. The prosecutor argued that Alcala was a sexual predator who knew what he was doing was wrong and didn't care.
Clearly.
And in March of 2010, Alcala was sentenced to death for a third time.
He's got the dating game cash, right?
Pretty much.
I mean, $200 in the 70s is like fucking $3,000 now.
I don't think that is right.
I don't know. I can't do that.
So, unidentified photographs.
Oh, shit.
In March of 2010, the Huntington Beach, California, and New York City police departments released 120 of Alcala's photographs and sought the public's help in identifying them in the hope of determining any of the women and children he photographs
What the fuck?
as additional victims. So approximately 900 additional photos could not be made public, police said, because they were too sexually explicit.
What? Yeah.
In the first few weeks, police reported that approximately 21 women had come forward to identify themselves. And at least 6 families said they believed that they recognized loved ones who had disappeared years ago and were never found. None of the photos were unequivocally connected to a missing person case or unsolved murder until 2013, when a family member recognized the photo of Christine Thornton. She was 28, and her body was found in Wyoming in 82.
Oh, that's fucking brutal, man.
And as
That's
of September of 2019, 109 of the original photos remain posted online. And I have seen them, by the way.
I don't want to look at them. I'm sorry.
No, they're not lewd.
No, I don't care. I don't.
I've looked at them because I wanted to see these people.
Look, I like we like talking about the serial killers and stuff like that, but when it comes to their victims and stuff like
Thank
that, I can't do it. I
Thank
can't.
you. I like actually making their victims known
Well, it's
because
like,
I want them to be known more.
we
than
were
them.
talking about fucking hell, I can't think of her name, but I can't think of her name, but we're the one who killed the Mormon dude, Jody
Arias?
Joseph Arias, yeah. We were talking about her like yesterday at work, and I actually found the last
You
photo.
mean she killed her boyfriend or her husband?
No, her boyfriend. I found the last photo of him alive, which is literally
She
a
stabbed
minute.
him like 27 times.
No, it's minutes before she fucking popped him in the head. And he's like, when it's him in the shower, and I showed it to my boss, like, hey, well, we might talk about them eventually later.
Oh,
on.
I'm going to talk about her. She is
And
point blank evil.
the last photo of him, it made me, I was like, I can't look at this shit, dude. It's terrible, you know?
So, as of September 2009, 109 of the photos are still online, and the police continue to solicit the public's help for further identification. Additional associations, charges, and convictions. So, in New York, after his 2010 conviction, New York authorities announced that they would no longer pursue Alcala because of his status as a convict awaiting execution. Nevertheless, in January 2011, a Manhattan grand jury indicted him for the murders of Cornelia Creeley, the TWA flight attendant, and Ellen Hoover, the Cicero heiress, or the Ciro's heiress.
How did they convict him for that?
They indicted him.
Well, they indicted, okay.
In 71 and 77, respectively. In June of 2012, he was extradited to New York, where he initially entered not guilty pleas for both counts. In December of 2012, he changed both pleas to guilty. citing a desire to return to California to pursue appeals of his death penalty conviction.
Oh, so he's smart.
On January 7th.
I'm going to go back to California where I know I can get off on this shit.
Yeah.
And be just stuck on death row until I die of cancer or some shit.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, he's a piece of shit.
January 7th, 2013, a Manhattan jury sentenced Alcala to an additional 25 years to life. The death penalty has not been an option in New York State since 2007.
This is...
So in Washington in 2010, Seattle police named Alcala as a person of interest in the unsolved murders of Antoinette Whitaker, 13. She was murdered in July of 1977, and Joyce Gaunt, 17, murdered in February of 78. Alcala rented the Seattle area storage locker in which investigators later found jewelry belonging to two of his California victims in 1978. Other cold cases were reportedly targeted for reinvestigation in California, New York, New Hampshire, and Arizona. Yeah, this guy is a major asshole. San Francisco. In March 2011, investigators in Marin County, California, north of San Francisco, announced that they were confident that Alcala was responsible for the 1977 murder of 19-year-old Pamela Dean Lamson, who disappeared after making a trip to Fisherman's Wharf to meet a man who had offered to photograph her.
By the way, Fisherman's Wharf is pretty fucking rad to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from this shit, but they have some bomb-ass clam chowder there. Not gonna lie.
They do.
They very much do. And you can go see seals and otters and shit like that. Or sea lions.
Sea lions?
There you go. Sea lions. And then you can see Sausalito, where they make the cookies and all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's not. It's Sausalito where the city is, but it's fucking rad. I fucking love it.
So
you can see Alcatraz.
Oh my God, I'm gonna throw something. So okay, where was I? She disappeared after making a trip to Fisherman's Wharf to meet a man who had offered to photograph her. Her battered naked body was subsequently found in Marin County near a hiking trail with no fingerprints or usable DNA. Charges are unlikely to be filed, but police claimed that there is sufficient evidence to convince them that Alcala committed the crime.
Can we bring it on real fast? It's not that they found bodies and stuff like that. It's that they already had the bodies, they already had the evidence, and they linked it to him.
Yeah.
Whereas Jimmy Hoffa, there's no body. So.
Yeah. So, in Wyoming, September 2016, Alcala was charged with the murder of 28-year-old Christine Ruth Thornton, who disappeared in 1977. In 2013, a relative recognized her as a subject of one of Alcala's photos made public by Huntington Beach Police and New York Police. Her body was found in Sweetwater County, Wyoming in 1982, but was not identified until 2015, when DNA supplied by Thornton's relatives matched tissue samples from her remains. Alcala admitted taking the photo, but not killing her. She was approximately 6 months pregnant at the time of her death.
Jesus Christ.
Thornton is the first alleged murder victim linked to Alcala's photos made public in 2010. The 73-year-old Alcala was reportedly too ill to make the journey from California to Wyoming to stand trial on new charges. He remains in California in Corcoran.
To this day.
Yeah, he's in Corcoran.
Yep. We're what's his face was held? Charlie Manson. That's where Charlie Manson was before he died.
So I have one last thing to go through here, and then we're going to be done for the night. So here's basically a timeline. 1961 through 64, U.S. Army. 68, graduated from UCLA. 68, raped, and he didn't kill her. Rape and attempted murder of Tolly, and pled guilty to the assault in 71. 68 to 71, he was a fugitive, but he was also a student at NYU. film school, and that's when he was under.
Wait, he was a fugitive
Roman.
and
Yeah, that was his under the name John Berger. And so then in 1971, Cornelia Crilly, that was the heir to, and the one that was Sammy Davis Jr.'s. Yeah.
Their goddaughter.
Yeah. So 1974, Julie J., the one that they didn't give the name of, but also the parole convictions, the providing marijuana to a minor is one of the things he was convicted of. And 1974 to 1977, he was incarcerated for that conviction. 1977, he killed Ellen Hoover. He was indicted in 2011 in New York. 1977, he worked at the LA Times as a typesetter. 1977, Antoinette Whitaker. She was murdered. 1977 again, Bill Barkham murdered. 1977, questioned by the FBI regarding Hoover. 1977, Georgia Wickstead murdered. 1977 again, Pamela Jean Lamson. 1977 again. And again, Wickstead, Lamson, and also Christine Ruth Thornton. These were only found out later with like the progression of DNA assistance. So 2010, 2011, and 2016. In 1978, I'm just going to list all of these. Joyce Gaunt, and then he was interviewed by the Hillside Strangler Task Force, incarcerated for possession of weed. He was a contestant on The Dating Game, and he murdered Charlotte Lamb. 79, he murdered Jill Parenteau, Robin Samso, and he was arrested on the Samso murder suspicion. 1980, convicted for the death of Samso. 84, the conviction was overturned by the California Supreme Court. 86, conviction number 2, sentenced to death for Samso murder. 94, he wrote his book, You, the Jury. And that was him asserting his innocence in the Samso case. Yes, actually, it seemed like in 77, he was extremely busy, like just on his spree. And 78, he was still in the spree.
Until he was actually arrested, he was in his berserk mode.
Yeah.
When was he arrested again?
78.
When was his last time that he actually?
78 was the Robin Samso murder, and he was arrested for it.
And that's when he was actually pulled, and it was never released again, right?
He was sent back and forth between here and New York.
So 80s.
No, it was 79 is the end of his spree.
Yeah.
It went from about 68 to 79. And then 2001, conviction number 2 overturned again for the death penalty in the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. 2003, DNA collected, 4 additional murders discovered. 2003, again, motion to join Samso case with the other 4 proposed murders, and it was contested but allowed. So that was in 2006 that the join was granted by the Supreme Court. 2010, he was convicted third time, sentenced to death for the murders of Samso, Parenteau, Lamb, Wickstead, and Barkham. 2011, indicted for the murders of Hoover and Crilly. And in 2013, he pled guilty and sentenced 25 years to life on top of his...
Which didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, on top of the death sentence for those murders. So, yeah.
That was it.
That was Rodney Alcala.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So, next week, we're talking about Bathory.
Yeah.
And stay tuned tonight for... I don't know what horror movie we're playing, but I believe we're playing a horror movie. And Maud, could you tell me if, somebody tell me if we have that going on tonight, and if Cemetery Joe is hosting. And then tomorrow night, we have Is it Sinister Sisters tomorrow night?
No.
No? Okay, so tomorrow night,
This is Tom's
we...
World.
Oh, this is Tom's World, and I believe we're going to be on cooking.
Yeah.
For the random show. And
Cooking
actually,
or,
we have...
talking about metal.
Yeah.
We have my friend Mike coming in. And,
Oh, yeah, we're doing that, aren't we?
yeah, we'll talk about metal on the random show tomorrow night.
So we also have a
That's fine.
contest coming up to rename the random show. So we'll let you guys all know what happens with that when that contest launches, and there will be a prize. So yeah. Thank you for joining us tonight. Oh, so there's going to be a Facebook watch party tonight, I believe. But
cool.
yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. Have a wonderful night. Bye, guys.
We're out.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.